Hello again and welcome to the Thursday Free podcast. This is not Liam Hedgecock that would usually hear hosting this podcast. It's Harvey Hinkler and I'm joined with a completely new lineup. Say hello, Jake Adams.
Hello.
Ben Robinson.
Yo.
And James Noble.
Hello.
Great to have a new lineup. Obviously the last couple of episodes we've had myself, Liam hosting, Adam and Tyler, and I think it's been a relative success, but a new lineup this week, new challenges for me to contain. But no, I feel up to the challenge. So we want to start off with Sunderland. Great win on the weekend, 3-0 over Southend. Chris Maguire again coming up with another goal of the month contender. He won last month and it takes some stopping this month with that strike. What do you think of Sunderland's recent progression, Jake?
I think it's really good for the town just to see all the players coming together and playing for the fans for once. It hasn't been that case for the last 2 seasons, and just the fans have obviously felt robbed from the players like Ndong and that, who's actually been sacked now, which is good for the club. But it's just good to see people like Chris Maguire just scoring goal after goal. It is going to fire them up to Championship, I'd think.
Yeah, they've been on a great run, like we discussed earlier. They haven't lost since the 15th of September. That's a great run over a month and a half without losing. They've had some big results in that time, and I even think the point they got at Coventry was a big point for them because just not losing that game really set them up to go on. And I think Jack Ross has installed a bit of more of an ethos at the club where other managers may have failed to, or the big name managers. Yeah. It's a very humble appointment, and it seems to be working, Ben.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've got a core now where they didn't before, where although they got a few results against Newcastle in the Premier League when they were scrapping to survive there, but I think even in the Championship they didn't have that passion, and now there used to be a poisonous atmosphere, but now it seems to have disappeared because it's almost like they've started again with a new owner. That was the first thing. I mean, the funds they brought in hasn't been significant so far, but they've got that new core of players that really want to win and they really want to do well for the fans, and they know what it's like to play in this league, like Baldwin and Maguire and players like that who have really stepped up this year. Yeah. And especially and they're starting to, their youngsters are getting more of a chance in this league again, and like Josh Madger, top scorer this season, he's been really good for them. And you know, I think it's really good that the manager Jack Ross has came in and give all of them a chance, because their youth system used to be one of the best in England, and then they seemed to drop for a few years, but now they've picked it back up, and I think they're carrying this momentum. If they can keep going, especially with the game in hand on second place, I think they can push for those automatic promotion places pretty much straight away.
And yeah, like you mentioned, Chris Maguire there, signed from Bury in the summer, and I think signing a player like him with so much League One experience, he got promoted with Sheffield Wednesday, he had a very good few years at Oxford, most recently got relegated with Bury actually in a very surprising turn of events. They had a fair good few players, Bury, but didn't work out for them. How much do you think that helps Sunderland get back up, signing these proven players from the third division, James?
I suppose in many ways it makes them more streetwise, in that they obviously have that experience at that level. Sometimes I think maybe a perception of players coming down from the Premier League or whichever higher level it might be, even if it's a loan for like a young player, sometimes if they're coming to League One, League Two, they can maybe be a bit lightweight, tend to be very kind of technically talented, but might not be able to cut it on the physical side of the game. So on Maguire's side, from what I've heard about him, it seems like he's not afraid to put a foot in every now and then, and he's just got that bit of needle in certain situations which you need just to get yourself through games that can be physical battles as much as football matches, really. So I think it just makes them a more complete kind of outfit with a bit more backbone, I suppose.
And how much would you lads say that bringing in the manager like Jack Ross, and it is a new Sunderland squad, there are obviously players that remain, but mainly they're young like Josh Madger, Lyndon Gooch, George Honeyman, that are getting consistent first team football now. how important is it, do you think, to start from scratch for Sunderland rather than trying to grasp onto what they had maybe in a couple of years ago in the Premier League and the Championship?
I think it's great for them because obviously in the squad in the past there's been a lot of poison. And these players now want to play for Sunderland, when in the past they've just been told that they've got to play for Sunderland because they've got a contract, they've been bought for big money. Of course, they're on big money as well. So now it's people playing for Sunderland who want to play for Sunderland, who are passionate about seeing this club getting back up to the top again. You've got people like Gooch, like you've mentioned, Honeymoon, the captain. Of course, Madge is firing off all cylinders in front of goal. He's great. So I think it's good for the younger core to actually shine now.
And it's such a big footballing city as well. I think it is very important that the fans have stayed on side for Sunderland for so long. And, well, throughout a dire few seasons, like even in the last couple of seasons in the Premier League, they were staying up by the skin of the teeth each year. But now I feel they're still getting 30,000, which the stadium looks half empty a lot of the time, but they're getting the biggest crowds in that division by a mile. They'll probably break the average attendance record this season for that division, which I believe is at 28 or 29,000. Can't quite remember. It's around that number. But I think there is no reason that Sunderland can't go up this season, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying about the supporters, even when they played Doncaster away and they won 1-0, I think they brought 4,000 fans on a Tuesday night, which is really good, especially going and playing in League One. It can be pretty miserable, especially if you don't get a result. So I think their optimism has just returned, and if they can push for promotion straight away, I mean, I think there's sort of a pressure that they do, but they're feeling so confident that they can, that pressure's just sort of, it's relieved of them at the moment. As long as they keep winning games, the fans stay on the side. Even if they don't, I'm noticing there's a lot less negativity there, and I think it's more togetherness. And as long as they bring in a few more players and they cut down the disciplinary record, then I think they should be all right this season. I think if they've got, like I said, the momentum here, and they start beating the teams at the top and they win the games in hand, then I just can't see them losing, really.
And they move on this weekend, Sunderland, to travel to Plymouth, a very, very long trip. Opposite ends of the country and opposite ends of the table as Sunderland fighting for promotion. Plymouth, they've won the last two, but still struggling in third bottom. James, how do you see this one going?
Well, obviously on paper you'd fancy Sunderland, but I suppose I don't know whether it's the kind of game they might. I think often they seem to fly between those kind of locations when there's that distance involved, so it might kind of offset the impact you often have from those long trips, but that could have an impact potentially. But yeah, you'd look at it and you'd fancy Sunderland because of recent form. I mean, obviously, yeah, the recent result we were talking about off air in relation to them going to Scunthorpe and winning 4-1. Plymouth, that does suggest that maybe they're beginning to kind of stem the tide in terms of negative results. And I suppose a risk with Sunderland as well is because of the size of the club, because of the name and everything, they're a team to beat, really. Like everyone's going to want to have kind of the scalp on their CV of beating Sunderland while they're in League One, because teams also know chances are they might not be in League One for that long. Maybe only, well, obviously you'd hope only the one season, but could be a couple, and then you'd expect them to probably head back up. So probably back Sunderland, but you'd expect Plymouth to probably get into them early and just sort of test them, really. But yeah, I think you'd back Sunderland with the quality they have in the team.
All right, can I get a quick score prediction from each of you? So Jake, Plymouth versus Sunderland.
2-1 Sunderland, I'll say.
Ben?
3-2 Sunderland.
James?
Go 3-1 Sunderland.
All right, so full out, because I was going to go 3-1 Sunderland as well. So, well, if we know what we're talking about, then Sunderland should be winning on Saturday, and if they don't, we apologise. But before we move on to the other side of the Tyne-Wear rivalry, Newcastle, just want to brief you on what's coming up later. So we'll have a quick chat of the Premier League roundup and maybe some Championship as well. And later on, maybe a bit of El Clasico from the weekend as well. look ahead to Arsenal-Liverpool game at the weekend, which is of course the big game in the Premier League, and I've prepared a special quiz which these lads know nothing about, so we'll look forward to getting into that later as well.
Oh no.
But now on to Newcastle, which it's a bit of a come down when talking about how successful Sunderland are doing. It is a complete different story for Newcastle, and we do have a Newcastle fan in the studio with us, so I'm sorry, Ben. And we'll go to you first. A 0-0 draw at Southampton. Some say a good point away from home, some say a missed opportunity. What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, going in before the game, you see how far down they are on the table, and you think, I think we've got to win that. But then you looked at the game itself. We just looked so poor, and they did have chances to sort of win the game. Especially Shane Long's miss. Going away to Southampton, we don't have a great record anyways. I'm just hoping, because we've got a few good fixtures, but I say good fixtures, we lost to Brighton at home, who don't have a very good away record, and I just can't see where we're going to score. It just looks so hard. Jose Perez missed chances against Brighton. The creativity against Leicester a few weeks ago was dire. I think it's possibly one of the worst I've seen. It just becomes hard to believe where we're going to get these points from and where we're going to get a win.
The problem, from my perspective as an outsider looking in for Newcastle, is Solomon Rondon is obviously still a touch and go, whether fitness-wise, but was the loan deal swap with him and Dwight Gale the right move? Because yes, Rondon's a physical striker, and I understand Newcastle are going to thrive this season on trying to get the breaks down the wings and get the crosses into the box and just try and get as many chances from that as possible. But Dwight Gale just seems a much more reliable finisher to me than Solomon Rondon. I'd like to hear your take on it, Jake.
It just seems like in this deal, it just seems like now it's only just one plan for them going forward, just lump it up to Rondon, when last season, if you bring in Gale, there's also Hosselu as well, who's a big striker. Of course, fans might not rate him, but he is a second option, kind of like how other teams in the past have had like a big man and little man options, like Plan Bs with Giroud and that at Arsenal in the past. So I don't think it gives them many options having Rondon instead of Gale, so I do think it is a mistake.
Yeah, I think Dwight Gale he's maybe quieted down a bit in the last few weeks, but in the Championship with West Brom he's been banging them in left, right and centre, as he did for Newcastle when they were in the Championship. Okay, he may have not. I don't think he really got that much game time last season under Rafa in the Premier League, didn't really give him the chance that he might have felt he deserved. But you look, they've signed Muto, yet he's only played a couple of games and we're yet to see what quality he can bring to the table. He looks decent enough, got a goal at Old Trafford, which not many Premier League strikers can say they will this season, although Man United aren't on the best of form, but we won't go on a tangent about Man United again, we do that far too often. But Newcastle this season are in real trouble of relegation, and they've looked at, like, there have been seasons before where you think, right, Newcastle are in trouble, but has there been a season that comes to memory where they've been in this much trouble this early on, James?
I suppose last season was maybe as close in recent memory as you can think in terms of a comparable one, because I think, am I right in saying that Newcastle were in the relegation zone at Christmas? Were you bottom at Christmas even?
I don't know if we were bottom, but we were definitely close, because I remember we beat Stoke, which was like a majorly good win, and then we beat Man United, and that the Man United win is what pushed us out the relegation zone, and we went on a really good run after that. But
that was in the new year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and because I remember Richie smashing it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Dubravka had an unreal game that day.
That was his debut as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I suppose, I guess, I don't think there's really many seasons where you've looked at it at the start, and as Ben said, there's not much to kind of put your hat on, so to speak, in terms of like a point of hope. Like you've got John Joe Shelby, who I think will be key to absolutely anything, because you just need to watch him for a few minutes, and you could probably still argue he's the best passer of a ball, English passer of a ball that there is anywhere at this moment in time. Obviously, he might not be as mobile as any midfielders, but that's another topic. But so he's obviously always a big plus, because you know he's got the ability to pick out runs in behind, to put crosses into the box to the likes of Rondon, even if and when he's fit. But no, I think they obviously need. I think the players further up the pitch just need that bit more confidence, because you can see it's quite creativity levels up there, kind of beyond Shelby, aren't quite as high as you'd like them to be. Because I mean, you look at the likes of Kennedy, got absolutely bags of talent, but it's kind of blown hot and cold so far this season. But if he hits form as he did for you guys at the back end of last season, he'll be a big attribute as well, because he's got that pace to burst in behind that Shelby, he'd have a field day picking him out, just passes him in behind the defence. So I think it's probably a case of confidence, but you've almost got to earn confidence in a sense, I suppose, and it is about as sort of stagnant, I suppose, as a start to a season as they've had in recent years. But they've got the ability to pick it up. But obviously, it's just got to be sooner rather than later.
I've got the lineup in front of me from the weekend's game, and I look at that team and I see maybe 3-4 proper Premier League players. Like, I see Jamal Lascelles just signed a new 6-year deal today. That's massive for the club. Whether that means he will stay on for those extra few years, or they just get an extra bit of money for him, either way, it's good for Newcastle. John Joe Shelby obviously has his moments, but maybe not as consistent as some Newcastle fans want him to be. Ayoze Perez is always a frustration for Toon fans, I feel. A very inconsistent player. Mo Diarmi's never really cut it in the Premier League. Kennedy is very hot and cold. He's not really the player at the back end that he was the back end of last season. And then you look on the bench, you had Rondon, who wasn't quite fit yet. Christian Atsu, who I've seen some people say stealing a living as a Premier League footballer, and I don't think they'd go too far wrong. It's just, I just see near enough every squad this season, bar the likes of like Cardiff and Huddersfield, have stronger teams than Newcastle. And even though there are multiple areas, where do you feel, if Rafa is given the funds by Mike Ashley, which we know is a very unlikely thing to happen, where would you feel that Newcastle need to strengthen, Ben, in January?
I think we need a number 10 and we need a solid striker. And I'm not criticising Rondon, but if he's injured all the time, we need someone just to come in and score. We might need... I know this could be like a shopping list, but we need some sort of creativity. We're missing Perez lately. He's been missing chances, and it just seems like there's no... I know Rafa thinks he suits the team and things like that, and honestly, I sort of like Perez, but lately he's been missing too many chances, and it doesn't seem like any point of him being in the team, really. I think we need another new number 10, and there's just a few players, like you said, that just don't look Premier League standard, and I've been watching them this year, and it's scary, because even last year when we weren't playing great, there was a bit of panic, but this year it's more like deflation, like we've already sort of accepted it, and that's the scary thing for me, the fact that the Championship's not easy, and even though we got up and made it look sort of easy, there were still times where I went to Blackburn away where we lost 1-0, and it was one of the worst games I've ever watched, because their players just... They knew that some of our players weren't going to be up to the challenge of a cold Ewood Park, and they really went into us, and eventually they got a free kick at the edge of the box and they scored, and it was...
I suppose it's sort of like what James was saying earlier about like Sunderland now in League One. Teams look at them already with like a hit marker, I suppose, on them, because they are such a big club in such a small division. And I feel like it was like that for Newcastle for quite a time in the Championship. But now I look at this side, and yes, there isn't in a strong enough squad there, in my opinion. But even though Rafa has very little to work with, do you think he needs to take some responsibility for how he sets the team up?
I think sometimes, yeah. I think sometimes we drop too far off. Like, you look at a case of Wolves when they got a point in Man City. Yes, there was a handball and things like that involved, but the way they sat back, but they pressed at the same time, so they got the strikers and everything to move up in a line, and once it got past that line, you got the next line onto them. So they were still pressing against these good teams, but I mean, I do trust Rafa, but I think this season he's made a few mistakes, like maybe sitting too far back against... I mean, Man United, I think in the end their quality showed. I'm not going to blame Rafa for that. Really, I think sometimes we sat off a bit too much and we took him off, which wasn't great. I know his fitness might not have been lacking. I mean, might be lacking, but I think there was a few things in there. But overall, I just don't think he has much at his expense really to do much with. Like, he hasn't really got much of an option, and I think his only way in his head is to sit back and play defensive, because he cannot see personally how good our attack is. Like, because there's no one there who I think can score goals that regularly. Like, Perez was our top goal scorer last season, which is scary because this season he's been pretty atrocious with scoring, and sometimes he'll go missing a game and he'll score and he'll be like, oh, where'd he come from? But this year, he's not even doing that, and it's just so deflated.
It's not a great time to be a Newcastle fan. They're at home on Saturday. Always a good atmosphere at St James's Park. Maybe toxic sometimes, but they like to get behind the team. And they've got Watford at home, so they'll be worried about the threats that they've got going forward and the way they're set up. And they're a very straightforward attacking side, I feel, Watford, with some good quality. Roberto Pereira and Gerard Deulofeu are having unbelievable starts to the season. Well, getting to the start of the season, we're getting closer to Christmas now, how time flies. But Jake, how do you see Newcastle faring in this one?
I don't think it's going to get much better for them, unfortunately. I think at the start of the game, they surely got to go at them, because that's what they've got to do for the fans, just for their fortunes, really. Just try and turn its form around, just try and get at Watford. We've seen sides get out of Watford, for example, Bournemouth, like a big victory for them, but that's another story. Got Bournemouth on fire. But of course, I think early on in the season, they've proven obviously that they're a side to be reckoned with this season, Watford. Great system there. So I do think they'll struggle.
Yeah, and can I just get a quick score prediction from each of you for this game? So Jake, I'll just go back to you quickly. Newcastle beat Watford.
Watford, I'm going to say 2-0 Watford.
Ben?
1-1.
1-1. James?
I'll go with Ben, I think 1-1.
I'm going to say 2-1 Watford. Sorry, Ben.
It's fine.
But you touched on Bournemouth just then, and just a quick round-up of the Premier League at the weekend. Bournemouth were a side that I wanted to touch on. 3-0 at Fulham, scoring goals for fun at the minute, and not conceding as many as people thought they had. They had that 4-0 defeat at Burnley, where people thought, right, this is where it's going to fall off. But like I said, they've won away at Watford 4-0, won away at Fulham 3-0. How far can Eddie Howe take this Bournemouth side?
It depends, really. I think it's how far can Bournemouth take Eddie Howe, because I think eventually clubs could end up coming in for Eddie Howe. They've got to, really. He's a young English manager. It's what all big clubs should be after, really. He's got a great system there. He's great at getting transfers in. Each transfer he gets in seems to work. So, but in terms for this season, I do see them maybe pushing for what Burnley did last season. Could potentially get into that top 8-7 area. Hopefully, anyway.
And I think one big game from the weekend, but I think was the most entertaining game that I sat down and watched this weekend was Crystal Palace and Arsenal at Selhurst Park, and the gasp there from the Arsenal fan, Jake.
Yeah.
Maybe not too much. Some controversy around Wilfried Zaha. I personally thought it was a penalty, and I thought Arsenal didn't have too much to complain about. Arsenal fans on Twitter seem to disagree with me, but that's another story. Ben, did you get a chance to watch this game, and if you did, what were your thoughts on it?
I did, but also Arsenal had a handball.
Yes, they did. I don't know how I didn't mention that. Lacazette with... It was the most blatant thing you've ever seen. He slaps the ball onto the direction of, I think it was Kouyáte's head?
I think it might have been, yes.
Yeah, Kouyáte, or I'm sure one Crystal Palace midfielder or defender, and then it just fell to Aubameyang, and it was one of the closest goal line decisions we've ever seen, but it just shouldn't have stood in the first place. What were your thoughts on the officiating in that game, Ben?
I think it was very questionable. I mean, the Zaha thing was very... That was quite a hard debate. I mean, I think when he moves that fast, Zaha, I think it's hard to spot whether he's diving or whether he's getting tripped up. And obviously now the case is out that he might dive because of the penalty of the week at Everton. So that one was a very maybe not penalty.
How do you feel about the argument that a defender or midfielder shouldn't give the striker the opportunity to go down? So if he sticks out a trailing leg or something, and even if the striker runs into it, I've heard some pundits say he is giving them the opportunity. What do you feel about that?
I think, I don't know, because some strikers, if a striker pundit is talking about it, they tend to think that it's quite smart from the striker.
Yeah.
But then from the defender's point of view, it's more like, well, he's just kicked my leg, so it's not actually me doing the foul. But I think I actually do agree. I think that I think it is a penalty because they shouldn't be really trailing. It's like when a goalkeeper slides at the feet of someone, although the momentum's there and they can't really stop it, it is their fault for putting that out there in the first place, and they've already missed the ball, so it's not like they're going to get the ball anyways.
And I think there was a more blatant penalty that wasn't a penalty given in that day. The Zaha one seemed to be talked about the most, but Anthony Martial, Idrissa Gueye got the ball, 100% got the ball, and then Martial seemed to throw his body in a very unorthodox, unnatural fashion and won a penalty in which Pogba took less time to take than it took Usain Bolt to win his world record.
True, yes.
And James, what do you think about Paul Pogba now? He seems to be almost playing up to the fact that people see him as this overpriced player and just he's there to put on a show, not to play football.
Yeah, I think he does seem to be a showman by nature, kind of, but I think in many ways that's also his biggest strength, because that's what allows him to play so freely in certain moments. I mean, there was a lot of talk over the summer with his role at France. That was a lot more kind of saw a more pragmatic, disciplined version of him, like playing alongside Kante in like a holding two. I suppose when you're playing alongside Kante, well, anyone would love to play alongside Kante, I think, really, in a midfield, because that does free you up to a certain extent. But he was very disciplined in that system and didn't really kind of, as you say, play up to cameras, whatever you want to term it. And yeah, I think the whole penalty run-up thing is a strange one, because I suppose if that's the way he's most comfortable taking penalties, then fine. But you know, of course, if he does miss one, and obviously on this case he puts the rebound away, but everyone obviously is going to absolutely rip into him because of the nature of the run-up if he misses it. Whereas if it's just a sort of standard run-up, whatever that's viewed to be, then it's going to be it's not going to be focused on to such an extent. But yeah, he's obviously got kind of seemingly like limitless ability, but still it feels like at United they've not quite found the way to fully channel it yet. But you see it in flashes, like the back heel set up Martial against Newcastle. Apologies for bringing that up again. And just sort of moments, and even the pass to set up Martial at the weekend, just he's got the ability, he's got it's probably more than just about any other midfielder in the world. But yeah, it seems to be a mentality thing to an extent, which probably separates him from those in like the top bracket of midfielders, whoever they might be, like Modric, could put Kroos in there, other ones of that kind of ilk. So I think if he can learn to channel that correctly, then he'll maybe take his game to the next level. So yeah, have to see.
And when we talk about the weekend's football, we obviously can't forget the very sad events that happened in Leicester on Saturday, and we'd all like to pay our condolences to Leicester City owner Vichai Sridharabhabara, because it's a tragic event, and I don't think we can really say anything more in it. Offer our condolences to anyone closely involved, and it was just a very sad day for football. But we're going to take a little quick break now, and because of the powers of YouTube editing, you'll be able to hear us again in a few seconds, so we'll see you then. And how magical is that? We're back so quickly. How do we do it? But now we're going to look at the quarter-final draw was for the last night for the Carabao Cup, and the standout game by a country mile is Arsenal versus Tottenham, the North London derby at the Emirates. And I have a very excited Arsenal fan sat across from me that wants to touch on this one. How much are you looking forward to that game, Jake?
Very much so. It just means it's an extra North London derby. Of course, it could be a risk. It's a gamble, I suppose, if Tottenham winning, because it's an extra chance for their fans to laugh at us. But after a couple of years ago, it was in a similar fixture in the same competition. I remember a Flamini masterclass at the Lane.
Yes, I remember that game.
He floated a very scruffy volley, but it was I think for names it was just called a well-hit volley from Flamini. He scored a brace that day for Arsenal 2-0.
It was. Yeah, I remember watching that game. I remember being very puzzled by a second-string derby, even though it was in the cup. It was just like watching Arsenal, not so much reserves play each other, Tottenham and Arsenal, but definitely second-string side. And speaking of Arsenal, they are in the standout game of this weekend as they host Liverpool at the Emirates. The last time these two met, thrilling 3-3 draw, standout performances from Mesut Ozil and Mohamed Salah, as you'd expect from these two teams. And we have a Liverpool fan in as well. We've not mentioned it, but James, long life Liverpool supporter, how are you feeling going into this one? Is this one of your toughest games of the season so far?
Yes, yeah, I think it is, absolutely. It's probably, I think it's one of the games that probably most Liverpool fans will be looking forward to the most because of the potential for how entertaining it could be. Just the fact Arsenal, I think it probably, well, I suppose maybe with the exception of City, it wouldn't be wrong to say they've been the most entertaining team so far in many ways, or most impressive in terms of elements of their attacking play. I guess you could say Chelsea could be factored in there as well, but yeah, I think because both teams like to play reasonably open, expansive football, it has got the potential to be another goal fest potentially. And although I think it will also be interesting to see how Emery does in this game, because it's sort of his first game against one of the perceived top six. Since he's sort of really been able to implement his ideas, because obviously he had those games against City and Chelsea at the start of the season, but they that was obviously very early in their kind of development as a team, as a squad, so it'll be interesting to see how he does against one of those opponents. But yeah, it's a game I'm really looking forward to personally.
One thing I want to do here, because I think this will be quite interesting, because we have got an Arsenal and Liverpool fan in. I'm gonna give you both an attempt each. Put ahead your case for why your team is going to win this match, and feel free to debate each point that comes up with each other. Me and Ben will sit out for a little bit. I'll get your thoughts on it in a minute, Ben, as a neutral.
That's fair.
But Jake, I want you to start off. Why are Arsenal going to win this game?
I think it's time for the big players in the team, such as your Aubameyangs and just your Ozils and everyone else like that. It's time for them to step up, and I think they will. I think as soon as you look at Aubameyang's goal scoring record in the Premier League, I think he's at the moment he's scoring a goal every 100 minutes or something, which is it's a madness.
Peter Crouch levels, nearly. Well, England record levels.
Yeah, close enough. But yeah, I think people like Aubameyang, I think he will be probably the factor which decides Arsenal winning in this game. Of course, there's an argument for Arsenal's defensive worries, but then again, I think Arsenal will look to just say that their attack's the best form of defence in this game, because people like Salah and Mane, it is going to be a case of just trying to counteract their threat with Arsenal's threat.
Right, so we've got the Arsenal perspective. James, why are Liverpool going to win on Saturday evening?
I think potentially the full-back areas, the wide areas could be key. I mean, it's not 100% clear where the likes of Mane and Salah will play. Mane, in fairness, generally does tend to be out on the left, because last couple of matches we seem to switch to a 4-2-3-1 from 4-3-3. We always seem to play with Salah as a lone striker, but he'll normally drift off towards the right, so it'll be interesting to see which shape we go for. But I think potentially the pace and directness of Mane and Salah, if they're both on song and the midfield has time to kind of pick out runs in behind, or just get them isolated with full-backs, then that could be key. And obviously in that sense, another thing we're talking about off air, it's kind of quite dependent on who's playing at fullback for Arsenal, so who's fit, so whether Bellerin's fit at right back. I don't know how likely he is to be.
I think he's fit. It's just Monreal at left back who's not going to be fit. So it's the case of who plays left back now for Arsenal. So it could be Lichtsteiner, obviously. He played yesterday against Blackpool, scoring actually. And
against the mighty Blackpool.
Against the mighty Blackpool. And a sturdy 2-1 win. And then, of course, there's just other options as well. There's people like Maitland-Niles come back from an injury. He can play left back. He played well against City before he broke his leg, but he's back. And then, of course, you'd wish to have Monreal, but just the way it's got to be in this game, it could prove to be the deciding factor in this game.
James, do you feel like having Daniel Sturridge as that secondary option as a striker gives Liverpool a bit more of an edge? Whereas, so if the trio of Salah, Firmino and Mane aren't really hitting fire as they should be, having the quality of a player like Daniel Sturridge with the form he's been on that season, could that be a deciding factor in Liverpool winning this game, as he bailed you out against Chelsea with a wonderful goal?
Yeah, absolutely. He's, that Chelsea match is the perfect example, because that was a match where Salah, Mane and Firmino, they had their moments, but they never really quite clicked that night. And obviously, Sturridge came on, and within 2-3 minutes he picked the ball up, like 30 yards out, shapes to shoot, everyone's saying don't shoot, and then sticks the ball in the top corner, and you're like, oh yeah, that's why. But yeah, he's just got absolutely bags of quality, and he seems to be and it's good to see him fit kind of consistently as well, because of the ability he has. And you always felt like it would just be a shame to see it. It's just been a shame to see it go to waste at times over the last kind of 4 or 5 years, when he's been so in and out in terms of injuries, and might not be quite as direct as he was a few years ago, pace wise and stuff. But he's obviously, just in terms of the quality and that goal scoring instinct he has, if the game is level or we're behind, or there's not much in it towards the end, last 15-20 minutes, then yeah, totally agree, he could be the difference potentially. And it's just nice to know we've got the likes of him coming off the bench.
Well, I think one thing that I'd actually love to see, and I hope that we can do it one day, when one of the array of people who love to come on this podcast, if any of their teams play each other, I don't know if any of you remember on the red button on Sky Sports where they used to have the fan commentaries.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So say Arsenal play Liverpool, and we just get James and Jake in just a box somewhere, mic them up, and just let them go wild for 90 minutes and post the results, because I think that'd do pretty well, personally. We could do it, say, and Newcastle play Arsenal. When that happens,
it'll take
we can
some
stick
censoring.
Ben. Yeah, possibly, yeah.
For me.
We can stick. Oh no, because we've got a few Tottenham fans on the course. You may see on this podcast. We'll have to wait and see on that. But if we do, Jake, if you could bear to sit in a room with a Tottenham fan for 90 minutes or longer, if it is in the cup, I would love to see that filmed. The reactions from the opposite ends in such an intense game. Would you be up for that?
Of course, let's make it happen.
Yes, let's definitely make it happen.
Let's make it happen.
Revolutionising the Sports Bite YouTube channel here on the podcast. Some call it arrogance, I call it ambition. But we go on, and there is another factor to this game. Aaron Ramsey isn't signing a new contract at Arsenal. He will be a free agent in the summer. And one club that has been linked to sign him up on a free, funnily enough, is Liverpool. How do you see this Aaron Ramsey situation, Jake?
I think it's a shame, obviously. He's obviously a talented player. Just he doesn't fit Emery's system. And Emery is doing a good job here, in my opinion, in saying that he's not welcome here anymore. Like he said it in a really respectful way. He's let him know that it's just not part of his plans, and he's going to stick by his plans. He's got players who he wants to fit into his system, such as Lucas Torreira, who I think will have a fab game on Saturday. I think he's been overlooked by many neutral fans. I think he's going to turn up on Saturday and show many fans that he's a great holding midfielder. So players like him are keeping him outside, and obviously he's the one who wants to be playing first team football. His contract's out in the summer. He's asking for crazy money, so he is going to move on, but it's a question of who to. Of course, it could be Liverpool. It could be abroad to Spain.
And Ben, I just want to get your thoughts on this weekend's game between Arsenal and Liverpool. We got good arguments from both sides to why Arsenal and Liverpool could win this game, but from a neutral point of view, how do you see this one going?
I think personally it can be won in. Well, I think Arsenal, the way they can win the game is by, I think, if they can break the Liverpool press and their midfield can stay composed. I mean, they're at home, so if they can get the crowd on their side and keep the ball and pressure Liverpool earlier on and, well, hopefully for them, get a goal, then I think that's how they win the game. But if Liverpool manage to crumble the pressure on Arsenal and break past that 2 defensive midfield line, then I think it could be a Liverpool rout. I think it could go. I think it could be a really close, good, high-scoring game. But I think if Arsenal bomb forward all the midfield, then Liverpool are just going to break them down because they're too high energy for them. I think Arsenal can win the game, but they just have to be careful and they've just got to keep the ball, do nothing silly with it, and just knock it around and keep the ball, keep the possession going, and try and spread Liverpool around, because if they keep the possession, despite the high energy of Liverpool will leave gaps if they end up going forward. Maybe not as defensively weak as they used to be, but if their midfield, like Keita, who likes to go forward and people like that, then there's no reason to say why Arsenal won't find the gaps, especially with a number 10 like Mesut Ozil. You know, he'll find the space, and once he does and he gets the ball, and you've got Aubameyang, like you said, a goal every 100 minutes, it could be a really good game.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be a really good game, but it is only the second most mouth-watering game of this weekend.
He's got it, hasn't he?
Because in Nottingham, there is a certain team travelling there who are top of the Championship and are on electric form, and that is, of course, Sheffield United. And I don't know how I've gone 41.5 minutes without mentioning them. That's a record for me. To someone who isn't a Sheffield United fan, me not talking about them, it's like a twitch. It's like every now and then I could just be saying, "Oh, you're going down to the shops, Billy Sharp," and it's like it'll just come out. It just happens. And we are away at Nottingham Forest this weekend. They're a good side. Spent a lot of money. I'm not expecting much input here because I know I'm talking to a bunch of Premier League fans about the Championship. It's the peasants' world. But we could be in the Premier League soon, who knows, top of the league. But I'm just really looking forward to it. And Billy Sharp's scoring a hat-trick at the weekend against Wigan, 4-2 win. Can't really ask for much better than that. But yeah, looking forward to it. Have you been paying much attention, any of you, to the Championship this season? Wouldn't blame you if you haven't.
I sort of have, because it's just because of how tight it is. I think this is actually one of the toughest years to decide who's going to go, because especially automatically you've got Middlesbrough, Leeds and Sheffield United obviously all up there, but you kind of rule out teams like West Brom, because I think West Brom have a lot of quality in there, and like we mentioned much earlier about Dwight Gill being really good this season. There, I think it's 8 goals and 12 starts. So I think as a team this year, Sheffield United have played a lot better, and last year they had a really good start, but this year they genuinely look a bit more quality. I'm not just being biased because Harvey's here.
Trying to flatter me. He's trying to keep his place on the podcast.
But genuinely, I think Middlesbrough, they were unlucky. They've been unlucky the past few years, have to come back up. Leeds, sort of towards the end of the season, when Newcastle went up, they really dropped down, and I thought when we played them, despite us beating them in a way, I thought they looked really good going down the flanks and things like that, and I thought, I think they've got to at least get in the playoffs, and then they seem to just slip down the table. But this year they seem to be holding on forever into those automatic / playoff places. But even then, Nottingham Forest aren't doing badly this season. They seem to be very close to the playoffs themselves, 2 points off. But between automatic places and the playoffs, between 6th and 2nd, 2 points.
It's ridiculous.
So, and between, we could go even further back, and between 10th and 2nd, it's only 4.
It is been a ridiculous season so far, and I think one of my favourites to go up this season is Derby. Frank Lampard is coming on leaps and bounds as a manager, put up a really good game at Chelsea last night, And I thought they were very unlucky to lose that game, 2 unlucky own goals, and the third goal should have been ruled out for a foul in the build-up, in my opinion, but they broke Chelsea down more than I've seen any team do this season in any competition. It was unreal to watch. So I think they're one to look out for. But our lads here, we're all journalists, we're all sports journalism students, and they've been out being good students and covering over the weekend. So we'll start with James. You were at CM at the weekend. How did that go?
It was good. We've I mean, in recent weeks it's been tricky because we prior to Saturday been on a 6-match losing streak. So there was initially a bit of a suggestion that I may be proving to be a curse. So that's now been broken at least. But no, it's
What was the score?
1-1. Drew 1-1 at Penrith, which is a bit of a trek. It's over on the east side of the Lake District, I think.
It's a fair go.
But no, it was decent day over there, went dominated large kind of swathes of the game, had more of the chances. Probably should have been 1-0 up within a couple of minutes, but yeah, then they took the lead on the stroke of half time. Really well taken goal, ball over the top, and their centre forward just latched onto it and lifted it over the keeper into the net from about 20 yards, and then see him equalised in the 89th minute. Bit of a scrappy goal, downward header, hit the bar, hit the keeper, then ended up in the net. But I mean, it was a very well earned point, and CM brought in quite a few new players over the last kind of fortnight or so, off the back of the negative run of results, just wanting to freshen things up, kind of create a bit more of a spine within the team, bring in a lot of experienced non-league players, bring in an experienced Northern League coach in John McDonald as well, who through contacts has been able to bring in a lot of these players or contribute to bringing them in. So no, it was good, and hopefully it's a sign of things to come and things improving over the next few weeks, because we're sitting second bottom of the Northern League Division 1 at the moment. So hopefully the only way is up.
Yeah, good stuff. Hopefully it is. And Ben, you were a few divisions up. You were covering the National League with Gateshead, won 3-0 against Aldershot. How was that for you?
It was really good actually. At the start of the game, Aldershot seemed to have a lot of the ball, but Gateshead came back into it, and it wasn't a matter of possession really. They just looked really clinical and really good on the counter-attack. They looked quite fast. We gave the ball away quite a lot earlier on, and there was a few moans and groans from the crowd, but once that first goal went in, it was a really nice move actually. It was I'm just trying to remember in my head. So it was flicked on from Steve Rigg, I think it was, and then Greg Ollie drove at the defence, and his first shot was blocked, but then he was really fast to react to the rebound, and he just rammed it in the corner straight afterwards. But then after that, Gateshead sort of took control. Aldershot, they didn't look... It's not that it looked bad, like really poor. It looked like they didn't have anything about them. Like, they didn't look threatening until... Well, Gateshead's second goal was a really quick corner, and then the shot from Barrow from the corner deflected up, and it was a real scrap in the box, and eventually it was put in from Bowden. But then the Aldershot came back, a few chances, tipped over the bar, good save by the keeper. Honestly, Aldershot, despite being in the leagues above only a few years ago, they didn't... I don't know what's happened. It shows you the drop that can happen if you drop from the conference, really.
Happened with York, didn't it? They're in no man's land now, and they were in the Football League 3-4 seasons ago.
I mean, eventually they put the game to bed, but it was a nice back heel laid in to the substitute, and he finished it. But It's been a really good run. I think, well, it was. It was a 4-game win streak. And then on Tuesday night, they lost 1-0 away to Fylde in the 90th minute.
Fylde are up there. Fylde are competing for promotion as well, so it's not too disheartening a defeat, I suppose.
It was just, I think it was the fact that it was last minute, you know, and a away trip like that. But
they're going to come home with a point.
Still in the playoff places.
Yeah, lovely stuff. And Jake, you were switching from an entirely football 45 minutes or so to some rugby as Newcastle Falcons played at the weekend. How was that?
It was alright. I went and watched highly entertaining draw. It finished 22-22.
A draw?
Yeah.
Rare in rugby.
Rare, it is. But it
it
happened.
Oh, it did.
See, both sides had their sides weakened due to the autumn internationals coming up, which seen players like Mark Wilson and Sinoti getting taken away to their international camps for the Falcons. So in this game, it was winger Zach Kiberidge who actually came in for Sinoti. He's got a hat-trick in this game for the Falcons. It was highly entertaining, just end-to-end rugby non-stop. It was a really entertaining match to watch. It was a great advert for the game of rugby as well, for neutral to watch. It's great.
Great. And just on the rugby, there is one thing I want to mention a little quickly.
Yep.
I only saw it as I was coming in to record the podcast, but my home rugby league team, Sheffield Eagles, have a player called Yiri Menza, and he's played there for many years. But unfortunately, it looks like him and his wife will be getting deported pretty soon from the country. But there is something you can do. I will be sharing this very soon, so if you want to look at my Facebook, Harvey Hinkler, or on the Sheffield Eagles Facebook and Twitter page as well. There is a GoFundMe. We're trying to raise money to keep Yira and his wife in the country, and if anyone could contribute to that, it'd mean a great deal to them and anyone part of the Sheffield Eagles family. So if you could spare a quid, that'd be brilliant. So, and before we sign off, I did promise a quiz.
Ooh.
And I will grab this quiz now for you on my uncharged phone at the other side of the room because I'm very well prepared. And so I'll get this up. Question 1. It is all football based.
Well, I've got one thing to say first. Have we all just got to pounce onto this?
Yes, I should have explained that.
Right.
So just shout your name if you are willing to answer the question, and I will direct to you. Point for each correct answer, and we'll see who comes out with the most at the end of it. Could make it a weekly thing, I don't know. Wink, wink, Liam, nudge, nudge, Liam. So, we'll go on. Question 1. Whose comments infuriated Harry Redknapp on his TalkSport show?
Jake. It was Gary Neville.
It was Gary Neville. Gary Neville saying that he said that Tottenham was spineless before Mauricio Pochettino, and this outraged the former Portsmouth, Southampton, West Ham and Tottenham boss, and he called his comments a disgrace.
Yeah, I sent him on a spiral, didn't it? On Gary Brazil's show.
On Gary Brazil's show, it was. Yeah, Gary Brazil, a controversial character in his own, but we'll get into that another time.
That's
another
story.
Liverpool and Arsenal, a theme of this podcast. They coming up at the weekend. In 2016, they played out an entertaining 3-3 draw at Anfield. But who scored a 90th minute equaliser in that game?
Ben.
That was Ben Just.
Joe Allen.
It was Joe Allen, the Welsh international now of Stoke City. Joe Allen. It was an entertaining game. Giroud got a brace to bring Arsenal 3-2 up after being 2-1 down. A very, very entertaining first half that was. And Joe Allen came up with the equaliser late on, surprisingly so, which saw Jurgen Klopp to run down the stand in wild celebration, if I do remember rightly. So, question 3. It's a bit closer to Ben's heart, this one.
Ooh.
Which was the team who Newcastle United last defeated in the Premier League?
Ben. Chelsea.
Well, he's got that one pretty quickly. I thought that'd be a pretty general one, but the Newcastle fan does grab it, so that's 2 points for Ben. So, it was Chelsea. Was it 3-0?
Yeah, it was.
It was 3-0. Very convincing in Antonio Conte's last game in charge of the Blues. Wait, was that before the No, that was his last Premier League game in charge of the Blues, because he had the FA Cup final after as well. This one is much closer to my heart.
Oh.
We mentioned Sheffield United's 4-2 win over Wigan.
No one's getting this.
We mentioned the fact Billy Sharp had a hat-trick. What was the year of Billy Sharp's last hat-trick?
Jake.
Go on.
I'm going to guess 2014.
Incorrect. I'll give each of you a chance to jump in if you want.
Ben. 2008.
Oh, he's got it as well. August of 2008, 3-0. First home game of the season. We beat QPR 3-0. Billy Sharp got his first hat-trick since rejoining from Scunthorpe United. He would then go on to leave later on to Doncaster, I do believe. Yes. And he's now with his third spell at the club, but he hasn't had a hat-trick since, which is strange for a striker who has the most got English League goals since the turn of the millennium.
He's constantly been just good everywhere he's been, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got the most English League goals since the turn of millennium. He broke Wayne Rooney's record not too long ago.
Bless.
So yeah, and it was his first hat-trick in 10 years. Ridiculous stuff. He'll probably get a few more this season, hopefully against Wednesday next week. And obviously with the tragic events, I thought it was only right to include a question about Leicester's title-winning season. Whose goal secured that title victory? James.
Eden Hazard.
It was Eden Hazard in a 2-2 draw at home to Tottenham. He'd had a wretched season that year. He got criticism left, right and centre, but this was an excellent goal. Turned his man, got into the box, killed it into the top bins, and that sparked wild scenes, I'd say, across the country, because no one... it was a remarkable season. Probably the most remarkable season in Premier League history to date.
It was quite a feisty game, that one, wasn't it?
It was.
Yes.
I remember Mark Clattenburg's comments, I think it was earlier this year. He said to BBC Sport that he let Tottenham self-destruct, and he didn't send off players because then the blame would be Mark Clattenburg cost Tottenham the title, but by him letting himself destruct and not sending anyone off, they lost themselves the title, which is an interesting perspective on it.
Just the Spurs always do it, isn't it?
Alright, question number 6. Last night, Chelsea versus Derby ended 3-2. 2 of Chelsea goals were scored by Derby players. You get a point for each if you get this. So, big stakes. Who scored the 2 own goals?
Ben. Tomori and Keogh.
You've got it spot on. For Yaka Tomori, on loan from Chelsea, and Richard Keogh, 2 free own goals.
Well.
And number 7 is the final question. Peter Crouch has got a podcast on Radio 5 Live. He does it with Chris Stark and Tom Fordry, and it is very entertaining. My favourite podcast. Listen to it. It's brought a new episode out. It's fantastic. The running theme of that is that a famous World Cup winner asked Peter Crouch for a picture when he saw him on holiday, and it has been a big debate whether this picture is real or if he just made it up, but he has provided it is a real picture. Which World Cup winner saw Peter Crouch, went up and asked for a picture?
Jake. Charles Pugh.
No, it is. I'll give you a hint. It was part of the 2010 World Cup winning squad.
So it is Spain.
It is Spain.
Jake.
This is the last answer I'm giving you on this one.
Okay then. I'm going to go for Xavi.
Incorrect. But, just to up the clue a bit more, he was very, very important in Spain winning that final.
I think it's now.
Ben.
I quit.
Ben.
Iniesta?
It is Andreas Iniesta. He went up to him, they were in a bar, and Andreas Iniesta asked Peter Crouch for his picture, which is one of the most ridiculous stories I've ever heard. But it happened. Oh, no, there's a bonus question, which I forgot to add on.
Here we go.
So, David Foley became an international sensation over the weekend. Why? 31-year-old non-league striker David Foley became an international sensation. Why?
James.
Go ahead.
I can't really claim to have the. It's basically you guys who've given me this. I think from the clip we looked at off there, was it that 25-yard overhead kick?
It was in South Shield's 4-0 win in the FA Trophy qualifying first round over North Ferriby United. He scored a stunning overhead kick. It's one of the most unreal goals you'll ever see, especially to be in non-league football. Yeah. Unreal. But Ben accumulated the most points during that quiz, so Ben is your winner. We'll see if this becomes a running theme throughout the weeks. You don't know. Again, wink wink Liam, nudge nudge Liam. It's gold. How can he not incorporate it next week? It's absolute gold. But just to round it off, just nice little friendly bit of chat here. What are you doing at the weekend, lads? You know, we've done all the serious stuff now. Let's get a bit of chat going. We are friends at the end of the day, I hope.
Yes.
So Jake, what are your plans for the weekend?
So this Friday I will be going out for my friend's birthday. He's 19, and I hope to keep my tonsils intact, but I will not go into any more detail into how.
Please do not. It's a family podcast, Jake. God.
And then I will be working at Sainsbury's, up the berries. I will be there Saturday and Sunday if you're watching. If you want to come get some hot chickens, I am your guy.
And after, you'll be getting ready for Asda Away, Pyro and all. Ben, what are your plans for this weekend?
Well, Friday I'm going with a few mates to see the undefeated Newcastle Eagles in basketball against the rivals at the top of the table, Leicester Riders.
Very good side.
Oh, I know, very good. They've challenged us for the last few years, including beating us a few times. So, first Eagles game I'm going to this season, so I'm excited to see what happens. And then Saturday I'm going to the Newcastle game, finally, this season. Missed a few games due to work, but I'm back. I can get to see them again with my season ticket.
It's a very sporty weekend for Ben. James, thrillers. What have you got going on?
Yeah, it's riveting. Yeah, I'm basically on Saturday. I'm heading down to see him again. They're playing Wickham at home, and I forgot to mention earlier actually the game at Penrith. Penrith, the bottom of the table, so that was two bottom teams playing last weekend, and this weekend they're up against 16th placed Wickham. It's an 18-team league basically.
So it's a bit of a. That was close to Ben there. You saw him jump up when you said the name Wickham, obviously where you're from.
Wickham, yeah.
See the hair stand up on his arms.
I know.
So yeah, I'll be feeding back whenever we all see each other after the weekend as to the events and but yeah, so that's obviously a high stakes game. Simon Johnson, who's one of the CM coaches, he probably accurately described it the other night as being an early season 6-pointer really. And they're both sat on 6 points. Wickham are only ahead by 7 goals on goal difference. So hopefully with CM being at home, some of the new players coming in, being able to bed in over the last kind of week, 10 days or so, they'll be able to get that first win on the board for a few weeks. And then after that game, I'll be hoping to sort of get things sorted and everything, and then hopefully catch the small game happening at the Emirates.
You can afford to miss it. Be all right.
I may have some kind of, well, I don't know. I think I'll be too nervous not to watch it.
Record your reactions and send them in, James. That's what we need to do.
We've been told to keep it clean. But no, it'll be.
There's always a censor button.
Indeed. Yes, yeah, there is. So that'll be Saturday, and then Sunday, I'm not 100% sure. Might possibly be playing for the Uni's Sunday team, but might not be playing this week. Have to see.
Right.
So should be decent hopefully, but a lot depends on what happens at the Emirates as to the mood.
Right, before we sign off, what's a good podcast without a plug? Jake, where can they find you? The good people listening to this podcast.
Instagram,
go on.
_ Jake Adams.
Can they find you on Twitter?
Can. That's that. You have to bear with me on this one. You can probably just jump the bed.
He's very new to Twitter, people. So
very new.
We're easing him in.
Please give me some help. Only 10 followers. Could be 11 now. 1 minute.
God, feels like we're making a charity
3
appeal for him.
notifications. What happened here, then?
It's because I've tagged you in something and it's got liked.
Well, that's
because I get numbers. You see, I'm a Twitter man.
10 followers. Right. Anyway,
Go on,
this is at Jake AP Adams.
All right, Jake AP Adams. Ben, where can they find you on Twitter?
I'm just gonna say at BenRob256.
At BenRob256. Where can they find you on Twitter, James?
At James_Noble98.
Right, that's very good. And you can find me, of course, at Harvey Hinkler. Oh, no, you can't, because that account got suspended. No, you can find me at Harvey_Hinkler on Twitter. Search Harvey Hinkler. I doubt anyone else is called that. You'll probably find me anyway. So, well, it's a very good weekend to you all. I hope you all enjoy it, and to everyone listening at home, it's a goodbye from me, Jake, Ben and James. And remember, phone your mum. She probably misses you. Bye.